Adam Fox is primed for a bounce-back season. We tell you why on today's episode.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blueshirts fans, to episode number 1353 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, Jon Chik. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. So a lot to do here today. First thing I wanted to cover was Adam Fox, and more specifically, why I think he's in store for a bounce-back season. I'll get into the reasons for that in just a second. Then we are also going to take one last look at the Rangers' regular season schedule that was obviously revealed yesterday, along with the entire rest of the NHL. I've got my top 5 games that I'm looking forward to. Would love to hear your opinions as well. Which games are you circling on your calendars? Which ones are you looking most forward to watching the Rangers compete in? And then finally, going to do one more draft spotlight. Today is going to be 5th round defenseman Zeb Lindgren. But we'll start with Adam Fox. First of all, let me just throw out the idea that the whole concept that Adam Fox needs a bounce back season in the first place is somewhat humorous. I still would maintain that Adam Fox, this past season versus what he had done in seasons before that, did not quite live up to his own lofty expectations. But probably the biggest reason for that is the expectations at this point are just sky high. We fully expect Adam Fox to be a Norris candidate, one of the absolutely truly elite defensemen in the NHL. And I think he has been for pretty much his entire career. Last year, I mean, if you look at it in a literal sense, he still was an elite defenseman, especially when you factor in his offensive numbers, but it just felt like something was missing. It felt like something was missing for a lot of players on this Ranger team this past season. But to fully illustrate my point before I get into the reasons why he's going to bounce back this season, this is what he did last year. And again, he put up the kind of season, Fox did, that 90 to 95% of the defensemen in this league would sign up for in about 2 seconds. This is what he ended up doing. 74 games for Fox, 10 goals, 51 assists, 61 points. He was a +9. But all of those, the goals, the assists, the points, and the plus-minus ratio were his worst marks of any of the past 4 seasons. That said, they are still very impressive and still elite when you look at them, just very plainly as numbers on a paper. He also had 40 hits, 108 block shots, 40 takeaways against 76 giveaways. That was the first time since his rookie season that Fox ended up with more giveaways than takeaways. So that was a bit odd to see as well. But again, I think it's indicative of really how the entire team played. And obviously Fox is included in that. But that has more to do with that stat than anything else, I would argue. Also, this past season, Fox ended up finishing 12th in Norris voting, which again, not bad, right? But when you look at what happened this past year versus the seasons before that, this is the first time in any of the last 5 seasons that Adam Fox has not finished top 5 in the Norris Trophy voting. So the biggest takeaway here is that it was a little bit of a down season for Adam Fox versus his lofty standards. And also that even the worst version of Adam Fox is still pretty darn good and somebody that I think a lot of people will be signing up for to have on their team. But as far as why he's going to be better this upcoming season, several reasons. First and foremost, he's going to get to play with Vladislav Gavrikov. When we did our episode, the big Gavrikov, Rangers trade for Gavrikov episode. And Grant, we did a couple episodes where we talked about Gavrikov leading into free agency when the Rangers were very much rumored to be in on him. We did a lot of episodes, but we did our winners and losers segment that we always do after the Rangers do, big free agent signing, big trade, whatever it might be. And with Gavrikov, one of the biggest winners that I pointed to was Adam Fox, because in my very humble opinion, and I think a lot of you will probably agree with me here, maybe not everybody, but in my very humble opinion, this is the best, most well-rounded defense partner that Adam Fox is going to have to work with thus far in his career. And I say this as a big Ryan Lindgren fan. I say this as someone who truly believes that Ryan Lindgren will be one of the more underappreciated Rangers of this recent era here. Obviously, things kind of went south for Lindgren this past year. Before that, though, I mean, him and Adam Fox, that was a heck of a pairing. That was the top the top pairing for the Rangers for quite some time. And obviously there was a lot of winning in there as well. But Gavrikov, everything we've heard about him, we've looked at stories written about him. We talked with Eddie Garcia from Locked On Kings, who gave us some intel on Gavrikov. And just based on what I know about him and what a lot of you know about him as well, he certainly does look to be the best defense partner that Adam Fox has ever had. So there's that. And obviously they got to find chemistry and all that good stuff. But hopefully that will obviously materialize throughout training camp, the preseason, and these guys can hit the ground running together in the regular season as well. Another reason for Fox having a bounce back season, I'm going to go with Mike Sullivan being the new Rangers head coach. And I know there's still some mixed feelings there. Some people want the Rangers to be a little bit bolder, try something outside the box. Instead, they go with, another former coach, albeit a two-time Stanley Cup champion coach in Mike Sullivan. But, you look at somebody like Chris Letang, and Sullivan coached Letang for quite some time, 10 seasons to be exact. Letang was a 4-time All-Star under Mike Sullivan. He was an All-Star in 4 of the first 5 seasons that Sullivan was the head coach there. Letang had made the All-Star game twice before Sullivan took over, but a very strong argument can be made that Letang went to a whole nother level under Sullivan, and that's very, very impressive, obviously. And now Sullivan has somebody like Adam Fox to work with. Look, there's no guarantees. They're two different players, two different skill sets and everything. But when you've got, elite defenseman like Letang was, I wouldn't call him elite anymore, but he was an elite defenseman. And you see how well he played under Sullivan, how much better he got under Sullivan, how he became a more well-rounded defenseman under Sullivan. I got to believe something similar could happen for Adam Fox. It's wild to think that, maybe we haven't seen the best of Adam Fox just yet. And even if we have, and Adam Fox is at or near, the best that he's played going forward, I think we're going to be pretty happy with that as well. Fox is still pretty young. That's another reason as well. He won't turn 28 until February. There's no reason to believe that Fox's best seasons are declining. I mean, players don't start to decline when they're 26, 27, 28 years old. It just doesn't happen. I know with Adam Fox, it's a little bit different because he has suffered some injuries, and that is something of a concern. But injuries do heal, and I got to believe that Fox is young enough that he can overcome them and get back to being, the elite defenseman that we all know and love. I would also say that Adam Fox, I believe he's going to have something to prove going in to this upcoming season after he was held off of the initial United States U.S. Olympic team. If you guys remember, obviously the Four Nations occurred this past season, and before that, I think it was during the offseason, every team that was going to participate in that announced, their first 6 players, and Adam Fox was included in that. They did something similar for the upcoming Olympics. Adam Fox was not included in that list. And look, he could still make it, but I got to believe that has to light a little bit of a fire. That has to make you a little bit angry if you're Adam Fox, and hopefully he comes back with a vengeance for that reason as well. I would also throw out this idea as another reason that I think Adam Fox is going to bounce back. I'm looking for kind of like a revamp, a shakeup of the New York Rangers power play. Not necessarily in terms of the personnel, although I'm open to that as well, but in terms of just the approach. The Rangers have largely been running the same exact power play through, 3 different head coaches at this point, and now David Quinn is back, and I'm just looking for that power play to get a new coat of paint. Something's got to be different because teams have clearly caught on to what the Rangers are doing. They've adjusted, and they've basically shut the Ranger power play down. I know that the Rangers being 5th to last in power play last season, that's more indicative of just how overall bad they were, I think, than anything else. But you also have to believe that these teams, you watch them play. You watch the Ranger power play. It just looks like teams know what they're looking to do, know what the approach is going to be. So I'm looking for something to change. And I think all the Ranger power play players are going to benefit from that, not the least of which is Adam Fox. He might benefit more than anybody because no matter what the Rangers do on the power play, in terms of the approach, in terms of the personnel, you got to believe that Adam Fox is going to be out there running point. And I think a new style of power play, whatever it might be. And we'll dig more into the X's and O's in a later episode and what they could do to try to switch things up a little bit when it comes to the man advantage. But just doing anything different, I think, is going to benefit a lot of them, and nobody perhaps more so than Adam Fox. Another reason why I think Adam Fox might be motivated this season, why I think that he's going to bounce back, is that, when you look at the Rangers right now, obviously they don't have a captain. And just like was the case a few years ago when they didn't have a captain, I think right now we're pretty much looking at a 3-man race. There could be a dark horse in there, but back then, the last time the Rangers named a captain, obviously it was Jacob Trouba. Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider were also still in the running. This time around, I think, again, it's a 3-man race. You're looking at JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, or Adam Fox. I would be very, very surprised if the next Ranger captain is not one of those three individuals. And of course, whoever the next Ranger captain is will not be determined exclusively by play on the ice, but that's obviously going to be something of a factor. The best player on your team isn't always going to be your captain, but you want it to be one of the better players on your team, somebody that's going to play a certain brand of hockey, hold guys accountable, all that good stuff. So I'm looking for Adam Fox if he wants to be the captain, and I'm not sure if he does or not, but if he does, that you would think that would be some incentive to start this season strong, because the longer this goes, and we're only about, we're in July right now, and the preseason starts in September. We're only about 2 months away from the start of the preseason, and there has not been a peep. I mean, a few of us have speculated. I've done it. You guys have probably done it. Beat writers have thrown it out there every now and then as far as who the next Ranger captain is going to be. But we don't really have any sense of like who the front runner is, or even if the Rangers are going to name a captain for this upcoming season or not. I'm getting the feeling they're not going to. Maybe it happens during the season. You never know. But I think if Adam Fox wants that C on his jersey, that's going to light a fire under him as well. And he is one of the longer tenured Rangers at this point. Mika's been there longer. Him and Panarin, I think, were the same season, because Fox now has 6 seasons, and so too does Panarin with the Rangers. But yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys that's been there the longest, so he's somebody that should get some consideration. Now, I would still go with JT Miller. He's still my pick. I think I put Trocheck at number 2 and Fox at number 3, but Fox is in the running, and if he wants that job, that's going to be some motivation for him to hit the ground running this season as well. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Definitely looking for a bounce-back season from Adam Fox, but in just a minute, we are going to shift our attention back to the New York Rangers schedule. We went through it together very casually yesterday. It was a lot of fun just kind of eyeing up the schedule and who are the Rangers going to play and when and all that good stuff. But right now, what we're going to do is take a look at what I consider to be the top 5 most anticipated games of this upcoming season for the Rangers, at least for me. And everybody's top 5 is going to be different. Love to hear what you guys think about this as well and what games you're looking forward to seeing. But we're going to do all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. We've all been there before. Expenses can really add up. You look at your bank account, there's not as much money as you think that there's going to be. And, it's a situation where, you go out to eat, you go to a Rangers game, you do some activities with the family, whatever it might be, some kind of a vacation. Those expenses can pile up. However, you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Big shout out to the everydayers, as always, for sticking with this podcast through thick and thin and all the ups and downs of Ranger hockey. We're going forward, continue talking some more about the Ranger draft class. We've got a handful of players remaining. We're going to give every one of them a fair trial and, see what they bring to the table and what their role could be with the Rangers moving forward. We're also going to get started with our best and worst case scenarios for the upcoming season. Might start with Artemi Panarin. There's a lot of buzz around him right now and the possibility of him signing a contract extension, maybe even getting traded, although I certainly wouldn't do that. So we'll discuss that. And also the shoulder check showcase. That is this upcoming Thursday. So exactly a week from today, that will be happening. I'm planning on attending, and we'll discuss that the episode after that game happens. So probably there will be a Friday episode next week. But for right now, let's go ahead and shift our attention back to the New York Rangers schedule for this upcoming season. As I mentioned a minute ago, the schedule dropped yesterday on Wednesday at 1 p.m., I believe it was, and we went through the schedule, just had some kind of casual notes and just kind of went through the schedule together on yesterday's episode. But I've had a chance to really look at everything, digest it a little bit, and what we're going to do now is a quick top 5 countdown, the 5 games that I'm looking forward to the most this upcoming season. Now, there's going to be 2 games right off the bat here that we're actually going to exclude from this list, just because they're way too obvious. I'm definitely looking forward to these games. I'm sure all you guys are as well. But that being the case, we are not going to include opening night October 7th at home against the Penguins because, again, it's opening night. Everybody wants hockey to start. We're excited. It's too obvious. We'll leave that one off the list, but it's an honorable mention. Another honorable mention that will be excluded from this list because, again, it's just too obvious. The outdoor game between the Rangers and the Panthers on January 2nd. And that's where the Marlins play, and that'll be a lot of fun as well. But those two, like I said, too obvious. And we'll do one more honorable mention here before we get into the proper top 5 countdown. I'm going to do an honorable mention of Islanders at Rangers on Thursday, January 29th. It's Rangers-Islanders to begin with, and that's also the second game of a back-to-back that the Rangers and Islanders will be playing against each other. The Rangers will be on the road first and at home second, and I'm kind of looking for the temperature to rise between these two teams. That's not to say that emotions never run high, but in terms of nasty rivalries, it just hasn't been that high on my list, Rangers Islanders over the past few years. So maybe playing a back-to-back here, that'll help a little bit. So that's what I'm looking for. But with all that said, let's get into the actual top 5 here. And we'll start with number 5, work our way up to number 1. Number 5 game that I am most anticipating next season, most have circled on my calendar, or however you want to phrase it, is going to be Rangers at Devils on Saturday, March 7th at 3 p.m. This is actually the first matchup all season between the Rangers and the Devils. That obviously does not count preseason games because why would we count preseason games? They don't count. So that, for all intents and purposes, first Rangers-Devils game next season. And it's very strange how they did it. To begin with, the Rangers and Devils are only going to play each other 3 times next season. All 3 of the matchups are going to be in March, and this will be the first of those 3 meetings. And on top of that, it's just weird because you're more than 3/4 of the way through the season at this point before the Rangers and Devils finally play each other. So there's going to be a lot of anticipation here. And whether Rangers fans and Devils fans want to admit this or not, we're going to all be looking forward to that game. These are rivalries that kind of need each other. Rangers and Devils, that's one of the big ones, at least for me. I'm sure for a lot of you guys as well. Countless playoff matchups and all these nasty things that have happened in games between these two teams. So that's up there pretty high for me. And the other reason this makes the list, I always love the dynamic of Ranger fans kind of invading an away arena. Ranger fans travel very well. We're very well spread out, pretty much across the world. And that is one of the ultimate victims of Ranger fans will be the Prudential Center. Every time the Rangers play at the Devils, it's like half Ranger fans. You see, blue dots, blue even groupings all over the arena. Ranger fans truly do invade that place, and that'll be a lot of fun as well. So that's number 5 for me. Moving on to number 4, I'm going to go with Ducks at Rangers on Monday, December 15th. And the reason for this, it's not that the Rangers and Ducks have any great rivalry. They don't, although they played a couple of exciting games last season, at least one. But the big reason for this, and some of you probably already figured it out, this will be the first time that Chris Kreider steps back into Madison Square Garden as an ex-Ranger. Obviously, parts of 15 seasons with the New York Rangers, going to be an emotional night. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Ranger fans, maybe even some of you, that will seek out this game in terms of, a game that you want to attend this season. Because everything else being equal, I mean, hey, you've got a guy that his jersey might be in the Madison Square Garden rafters one day. All these clutch playoff moments for the Rangers as well. That's a game that I think people are going to want to watch, either in person or on TV. Again, going to be an emotional night. I'm sure there'll be a nice video tribute for Chris Kreider. There certainly should be. And to a lesser extent, I mean, we can throw Jacob Trouba in there as well. It's going to be his first time back in Madison Square Garden. I know, there's people, myself included, that felt that he was never really an $8 million a year kind of defenseman. But the bottom line, this guy was here for a lot of winning. Always in a top 4 role, or just about always, and was the captain of this team and led them to a couple of Eastern Conference finals. And obviously everything fell apart near the end. But, Trouba deserves his moment too. And I think both of these guys will certainly be cheered by the Garden faithful. I would hope so. It's not to say everything was always perfect, but I think they deserve to be cheered. Certainly Kreider. I mean, if you boo Chris Kreider, you're out of your mind. Jacob Trouba, what would even be the point of booing him? I know his game slipped, but I mean, the guy was a lunch pail kind of captain. And I mean, I think he deserves his flowers, at least for a quick minute there at Madison Square Garden. The other note about this game, it's also during a grind for the Rangers. They're going to play 4 games in 6 days. Home Canadians on December 13th, home Ducks on the 15th, home Canucks on the 16th, at Blues on the 18th. So that's just a grind in and of itself. And, obviously this Ducks game is the first of a back-to-back. So it's gut check time. You got to fight your way through it and find a way to get a win here and spoil the return of Kreider and Trouba. Although I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, there's 4 former Rangers on the Ducks. You throw Vetrano and Strome in there too. So good luck getting out of that game without a former Ranger scoring a goal. Number 3 on this list, we're going to go Rangers at Caps on Wednesday, December 31st. That is New Year's Eve. The game will be occurring at 12:30 p.m. This is another gut check kind of a game for the Rangers. This is the 5th game of a 6-game road trip for the Rangers, and that is the longest road trip of the season for this team. They don't even have another road trip that's longer than 4 games, so it's the longest road trip by 2 games to spare there. It's a rivalry game. Something else that makes this interesting to me is that this might be the last time that the Rangers play Alex Ovechkin on the road. They do play the Capitals later in the season. It's in the Garden, but that's always a fun matchup too. That's not an easy place to play, but the Rangers have gone in there and had some success in recent years, certainly in some playoff games as well. And I just think that the New Year's Eve game during the day, that's kind of a fun dynamic. That's unique. Rangers in previous seasons, I don't think they played on New Year's last year. I could be wrong, but they've definitely done it in recent seasons. There was one year where they were on the West Coast and the game started at like 10 or 10:30. I mean, this is fun. Like, this is a 12:30 start time on New Year's Eve. So it's during the middle of the week. You've got a day game, an afternoon game, a very early start time. Just a fun, unique, different kind of a vibe. And hopefully, you guys are off from work. And if you so desire, you can get started on your New Year's activities a little bit early that day, depending on how you want to play it. It's up to you. But either way, I think this is a really fun game. It's a great test as well, given the fact that the Caps were the best team in the Eastern Conference last year, at least going by record. Number 2, we're going to go Rangers at Bruins at 1 p.m. on Friday, November 28th. This is the day after Thanksgiving. And I mentioned this when the schedule was released, but I'll repeat it now for everybody that might have missed it. If you guys remember, I know you remember last season, how difficult it was to be a Ranger fan and how poorly this team played for the vast majority of the season. But the first time that I really, really went all in on this team, really attacked them, really tore them to shreds, was the day after Thanksgiving last year. We did a live show that was almost an hour, and they had just lost 3-1 to the Flyers. They were zombies. They were just comatose. They looked like they wanted to be anywhere else in the world but playing in a professional hockey game for the New York Rangers against the Philadelphia Flyers. And I said all that and a whole bunch of other things about this team when that happened, when that game was over. We did the live show right after it ended. So it almost can't be as bad by default. And we're also getting to a point in the season here where it's kind of like, okay, like what are we? We're going to be about 6 weeks into the season at this point. You're starting to get a feel for your team. Is this going to be a team that comes out all hungover from the turkey and whatever else against the Bruins and just kind of mails it in and half bleeps it? Or are they going to be focused, locked in, ready to go, ready to battle a team that's, a fellow Original Six team and always a rivalry matchup as well? And I mentioned for our last entry that's part of a game where, there's 4 games in 6 days. It's the same thing right here. This is a grind of the, a part of the schedule where they're going to have to grind. So the Rangers are going to be home against the Blues on November 24th, at the Canes on the 26th. Then you get Thanksgiving. And then at the Bruins on the 28th, home against the Lightning on the 29th. And the Bruins game and the Lightning game are both early start times, 1 p.m. for the Bruins, 2 p.m. for the Lightning. So they're thrown off of their normal routine there, their normal schedule. It's kind of a unique part of the schedule, not just for the Rangers, but any team in the NHL. Look, it's a good matchup. I mentioned the Original Six thing. Both these teams are in a spot where they're trying to kind of put the pieces back together. TD Garden is historically not an easy place to play, so it'll be a good test, especially with the early start time and the fact that it is Thanksgiving the day before. Hopefully the Rangers are a heck of a lot more focused this year than they were last year. And the number one game that I'm most looking forward to this upcoming season, I'm going to go with Canes at Rangers on Tuesday, November 4th. This is going to be the first matchup with the Canes, and this has been such a great rivalry over the past few years. The nastiness, the animosity has really ramped up. We've had a couple of different Rangers, obviously leave our team and end up on the Canes. Most recently, of course, Keandre Miller, who was traded, but it's a great rivalry game. It's the first game for Keandre Miller against the Rangers. To throw this out there, it's the first game for Scott Morrow against the Canes, if he's on the NHL roster at that time. The Rangers at this point, it's a very odd spot in the schedule, just when you kind of eyeball it, when you look at the calendar, because the Rangers are in a spot here when they play this game. When the puck drops, they would have been off for the 2 days before this, and they'll also be off for the 2 days after this. So it's just sort of lost in the middle of the schedule, or I suppose the early portions of the schedule, but you don't really see that very often where an NHL team plays just once in 5 days. And the reason this is important to me, and the reason I bring this up, this is the kind of game last year where the Rangers would probably no-show it. They'd just be out to lunch. They'd still be kind of on vacation. In their mind, they're kind of just on vacation, through this whole thing because there's so much time off here. Whereas this year, it's early in the season. This is the 14th game of the season. So we're just getting started, just starting to get a feel for who the Rangers are, what they are, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, who's off to a good start and who's not. But I think this is going to be a very good litmus test because you're up against a rival that's always up to play you. So you better be up to play them. And you're in a situation here where I think it's going to tell us a lot what the Rangers' collective mindset is going into this game. Because if they come out unfocused because they've had 2 days off, they know they have 2 days off after this, that's not going to be good. That's exactly what last year's Rangers team would do. So I'm not looking for that this year. And on top of everything else, like I said, I like beating the Canes. Going into the playoffs this year, we did this thing where we ranked the 16 playoff teams in terms of how much we want them to win versus how much we don't. And I think I had the Canes at like second to last, only to the Devils. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And adding to this whole dynamic of the Rangers, looking at their mindset and how they're going to approach this game against the Canes will also come immediately after a 4-game road trip. And that always sort of lends itself to a team being flat. That's not just the Rangers. We see that happen in the NHL. Team has a good road trip. They come together, they bond, and then they're a little bit sleepy in that first game back home. Let's not let that happen. If the Rangers come out and they dominate this game and they look like their heads are on fire and all that good stuff, then I think we're going to be feeling pretty good about the Rangers if they're able to win this game, especially if they can do it in convincing fashion. But those are my top 5. Let me know your top 5. Very curious to find out about that as well. But in just a second, going to shift gears again. Going to talk about a Ranger draft pick, and it's going to be 5th round left-hand defenseman Zeb Lindgren. What does he bring to the table? What does he do well? What does he do bad? Going to break that all down in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a new show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets even faster and even easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're worried about what happens if plans change, the Game Time Guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. And if you're tired of the endless scrolling to find the best deal, Game Time Zone Picks pick the best seat in your section just for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concerts and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers with a quick look at one of their draft picks from this season. That will be left-handed defenseman Zeb Lindgren. Right off the bat here, no, there is no relation to Ryan Lindgren. Most of you probably are aware of that, but you hear that name and you think, oh, maybe he's got a brother or something. Nope, no relation. As far as how he came to the Rangers, though, the Rangers took him in the 5th round at number 139 overall. He is 18 years old, 6'1", 198 pounds, and a lefty shot. And this past season, he played with the J20 national team, 38 games, 4 goals, 15 assists, and a +8. Also played 5 games in the SHL last year as well. No points and was an even plus-minus in those 5 games. And one other thing that I have to throw out here really quickly, just because it's kind of humorous in a way, although, I don't really know the circumstances behind this, so I hesitate to say that it's humorous. However, in his J20 season, he had 76 penalty minutes in 38 games. And you look at that and it's like, how is that even possible? Something must have happened. Something did happen. I just don't know exactly what. I was able to find a box score from a game that Lindgren played in, where he had 2 separate 20-minute misconducts in the same game, which is weird to begin with, but we're just scratching the surface. Those game misconducts, they both happened after the game was over. His team lost in overtime, and after the game was over, at least on the box score, it says that Lindgren was issued 2 separate 20-minute game misconducts. I have no idea what happened. If anybody has any intel or any information on this, let me know. I scoured the internet, looked all over Twitter, Googled it. The only thing I was able to come up with was the box score. So I don't know what he did. I don't know what happened, but nobody else in that game, at least according to the box score, again, had any kind of a game misconduct of any time. So a true mystery, at least as of now. Haven't been able to find any video of it or anything like that. Again, if anybody has any intel, let me know. But as far as who Lindgren is as a player, We'll do the negatives first. We'll get those out of the way. Apparently, he can panic when he's under pressure. Just doesn't handle that very well. He does have decent mobility, but certainly lacks explosiveness or any kind of speed whatsoever. And also has limited offensive upside. And he's a defenseman, so that's not like the end of the world, but that's something to keep in mind as well. As far as his positives, it's interesting because from what I've been able to piece together, and information does get scarcer, obviously the farther you get in the draft class and the later these guys are being picked. But he is seen as something of a two-way defenseman, despite not having the flashiest of numbers. So it sounds like, if nothing else, he's not a liability in the offensive zone. He's just not somebody that's going to be overly dynamic or rack up a bunch of points or anything like that. He also has a very high compete level. Get ready for this one. It's the best hockey cliche of draft season. He is said, say it with me, to have a what? A high hockey IQ. You hear that term more than anything else around this time of the season when it comes to players being drafted, but it's still good to hear. He also does very well in one-on-one situations, uses his strength to win puck battles. We didn't see a lot of that this past season with the Rangers. Good at puck retrievals as well, and seems to have a good sense of when to pinch and when not to, when to get into the offensive zone and when to maybe peel back a little bit and obviously prioritize defense, and also said to be a very solid penalty killer as well. I'll go ahead and leave you guys with a couple of scouting reports as it pertains to Lindgren. We can call it after that. This one comes to us from the Elite Prospects 2025 NHL Draft Guide. Skating is Lindgren's calling card. He's mobile, employs good posture, and gets plenty of power out of his strides. While he could play the game in a very different way, given his skating advantages, he profiles more as a puck mover through passing rather than carrying. The skating is also a defensive asset, allowing him to get into position to interrupt chances and make well-timed pinches to keep the play alive in the offensive zone. And this one comes to us from Peter Baracchini from the Hockey Writers. Lindgren's simplistic play style is something that's already well developed. His defensive style and composure will make him a serviceable second or third pair defender at the next level easily. He can play in any situation, especially on the penalty kill, and he's a defender that you can rely on in tough situations to help propel the team forward. And that last one, like I said, comes to us from Peter Baracchini from the Hockey Writers. He also mentioned in his article on thehockeywriters.com that it looked like Lindgren was going to be picked in the middle of the third round to the end of the third round. And that didn't happen. The Rangers didn't get him until the fifth round. There's two ways to look at it. One is, okay, why did he slip? Why did he fall? I think that by the time you get to these middle rounds, the NHL draft becomes a lot more fluid than the first two rounds. You have guys going in the third round that you think are going in the fifth round and vice versa. That's just the way that it goes at that point. But I think the best way to look at this is that, yeah, you know what? They got him a little bit later than he was expected to be there. It's just one man's opinion, Mr. Peter Baracchini of the Hockey Writers, but that still was an interesting note, at least to me. And this also feels like kind of a forced selection as well. And it's in contrast to Mikael Eriksson, who we discussed in our last episode, who seems to be a little bit of a boomer bust prospect. But I figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. And definitely remember to subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.